The hunting pride of the Vraxian Empire considered themselves the galaxy's finest predators. With scales like obsidian armor, retractable claws that could shred durasteel, and enhanced sensory organs that detected heartbeats from half a kilometer away, they had never encountered prey they couldn't claim. Their latest contract seemed almost insultingly simple. Extract a human diplomat from a remote research station before rival factions could secure him for ransom. What the Vraxians hadn't accounted for was the dozen younglings sheltering in that same station. Kalen had been reviewing terraforming data when the proximity alarms shrieked. Through the observation windows, he watched 3 sleek Vraxian assault craft descend like falling shadows. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, securing the research files and reaching for his personal sidearm. Standard issue for human diplomats in contested space. A kinetic pistol with 30 rounds and a combat knife. Laughable armament against Vraxian hunters, but it was what he had. Attention, human diplomat. A voice hissed through the station's comm system. Surrender yourself, and we permit the others to live. Resist, and we paint these walls with everyone inside. Kalen's jaw tightened. The others weren't researchers or security personnel. The station had been scheduled for decommission, its skeleton crew evacuated 2 days prior. Everyone except Kalen, who'd volunteered to stay behind for final data compilation. And everyone except the group of Torvian cubs whose transport had made an emergency landing that morning, their engines crippled by micrometeorite damage. He'd found them huddled in the cargo bay. 12 younglings, none older than 6 standard years by human reckoning. Their caretaker had died in the landing, and the cubs had been terrified, their large eyes wet with tears, their small bodies trembling. Kalen had spent the last 8 hours trying to comfort them, sharing his ration bars, telling them stories, promising that help was coming. Now the Vraxians were here instead. The cubs stay out of this, Kalen transmitted back. This is between you and me. Rasping laughter echoed through the speakers. Cubs? Even better. Torvian younglings fetch excellent prices on certain markets. Perhaps we take them too. Something cold settled in Kalen's chest. Not fear. He'd moved past fear. This was the ice-calm clarity that came when a human decided that some lines could never be crossed. He moved quickly through the station corridors, heading not toward the primary docking bay where the Vraxians would expect him, but toward the environmental controls. The station's life support systems were modular, designed for easy maintenance. Kalen's fingers flew across the control panel, rerouting power, creating dead zones and active zones, turning the entire facility into a maze of breathable and unbreathable sections. The Vraxians entered through the main airlock with characteristic confidence. Their leader, Vash, stood nearly 3 meters tall, his hunting leathers adorned with trophies from 100 successful contracts. He gestured with one clawed hand, splitting his pride into 3 hunting groups. The human is frightened and alone, Vash announced. We take him alive. The cubs we secure for secondary profit. Move efficiently. We have other contracts waiting. They discovered the first environmental trap when a hunting pair pushed through a bulkhead door and immediately began choking. The corridor beyond had been vented to near vacuum. The air pressure dropped to levels that left the Vraxians gasping. They retreated, snarling in frustration. Kalen watched through security feeds, memorizing their positions, counting their numbers. 9 hunters total. He had 30 rounds. The mathematics weren't in his favor, but mathematics had never fully captured what humans could do when protecting the helpless. He struck from the maintenance tunnels, a route too narrow for Vraxian frames, but perfectly sized for human agility. The first hunter never saw him coming, just felt the knife slide between armored scales at the joint where the neck met the shoulder. Kalen was moving before the body fell. Already repositioning. 2 more Vraxians found their companion and roared in rage. They charged down the corridor where they detected movement, only to trigger the magnetic seal Kalen had rigged. The bulkhead slammed shut, trapping them in a section rapidly filling with fire suppression foam. They could escape eventually, but it would take time. Vash began to understand he'd underestimated his quarry. The human has prepared the ground. He growled into his comm. Reform at Junction 7. We move as a unified pride. But Kalen didn't fight like a Vraxian. He didn't rely on strength or superior weapons. He fought like a human, with cunning, with knowledge of terrain, with the desperate creativity of someone who absolutely refused to fail. When the Pride regrouped at Junction 7, they found Kalen waiting in the observation deck above, his pistol trained on Vash. "Leave now," Kalen called down. "Walk away from this station and no one else needs to die." Vash's laugh was genuinely amused. Bold words for prey. He raised his plasma rifle. "You have. What, a kinetic weapon? Against our armor, it's worthless." "Maybe," Kalen agreed. He fired 3 times in rapid succession. The rounds didn't hit Vraxians. They hit the observation window's structural supports. The reinforced glass had been damaged during the Torvian landing, weakened but not yet critical. Now it shattered spectacularly, explosive decompression tearing through the junction. The Vraxians, heavier and bulkier than humans, were pulled toward the breach while Kalen clung to a secured handhold. He'd timed it perfectly with the environmental system cycle. 3 seconds of vacuum before emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Long enough to send the Vraxians tumbling and disoriented, short enough that Kalen could maintain consciousness. When the pressure stabilized, 4 more Vraxians were dead or incapacitated. Vash remained, his armor's emergency seals having protected him. But he was alone now, bleeding from a dozen cuts, facing a human who'd just demonstrated terrifying tactical awareness. "You fight well for prey," Vash admitted, raising his claws for combat. "But you cannot defeat me in direct confrontation." Kalen didn't bother responding. He fired his remaining rounds at the deck plating beneath Vash's feet, plating weakened by the same micrometeorites that had damaged the Torvian transport. The floor gave way and Vash fell through into the maintenance level below. By the time the Vraxian leader climbed back up, he found Kalen standing before the cargo bay where the cubs sheltered. The human was empty-handed now, his pistol dry, his knife embedded in a dead hunter 3 corridors back. 30 rounds and a knife, Vash said quietly, his respect grudging but genuine. "You've killed or disabled my entire pride with 30 rounds and a knife." "I had more than that," Kalen replied. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. "I had a reason to win. You were just here for profit." Vash studied the human for a long moment. Behind Kalen, small faces pressed against the cargo bay window, 12 Torvian cubs watching their protector face down a nightmare. The Vraxian hunter understood then what he'd encountered. Not just a human who decided these younglings would survive regardless of cost. "We leave," Vash said finally. "The contract is void." As the Vraxian craft departed, Kalen slumped against the cargo bay door. Inside, the cubs pressed closer to the window, their small hands touching the glass. Help would arrive tomorrow. He just had to keep them safe until then. His empty pistol lay discarded on the deck. 30 rounds had been enough after all, not because of the weapon, but because of what stood behind it.